Is it just me, or was that not the worst episode of Monday Night Raw we've ever seen? Fans are coming back next month. Last night, the final Thunderdome pay-per-view was in the books, and WWE blasted us with an enormous Monday Night Raw tonight after us going the first portion of the day all the way up until about 3 hours prior to showtime with no matches announced, no Raw preview, no nothing. You just assume it's a complete clusterfuck back there, and they're writing everything on the fly, and then they nail you with 5, count them, Money in the Bank qualifying matches tonight. Last night on the pay-per-view review, Hell in a Cell, we were speculating if they would even start the qualifying matches tonight. They probably would, but maybe start them slow. They started them fast and qualified a whole bunch of dudes and women tonight for Money in the Bank, and gave us an interesting main event with the Hell in a Cell match between Bobby Lashley and Xavier Woods. Help me out. I'm assuming that Bobby Lashley is the first person ever to wrestle in Hell in the Cell matches on back-to-back nights. This was the first Hell in the Cell match on Raw since 1998. First ever on SmackDown last Friday. We've had, 4 Hell in the Cell matches in the span of 4 days or whatever it's been. So that's a lot, and it was kind of transparent what they did here, and we'll talk about that as we get to the show later on here. But in the opening of the show, when they set that Hell in the Cell match up, didn't it seem painfully obvious to all of you guys that that's a reaction to the stories that we heard about the USA Network being pissed off that WWE moved the Hell in the Cell off, or the Roman and Ray match off of Hell in the Cell and onto SmackDown, essentially moving it off of NBC Peacock and onto Fox. So like the spoiled little asshole kid in Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory, the little girl who wants everything, Daddy, I want a Hell in the Cell match too. So WWE had to give them that just to appease them, like they're a little fucking child. So I found that to be interesting, and it does, even though I thought the match was pretty good and it told a pretty good story here with Lashley and Kofi, which is going to be our Money in the Bank championship match, which we also speculated the likelihood of last night. It did a good job of setting that up and everything, but I'm really not a fan of WWE having to book or dictate their storylines based on some outside shit. They already don't know what they're doing as it is. They don't need any other outside influences fucking up shit that they're more than capable of fucking up completely on their own. So I didn't really like that, and I thought this was only done just to, say, fine, USA, you can have one too. What does USA even give a shit? I don't think they understand that the fans really don't care if we get a Hell in the Cell match or not. That big, obnoxious red box that once demonic structure, has turned into is not really appealing to the long-term wrestling fan who've been watching Hell in the Cell since the very beginning, when they used to be badass, and now they are extremely watered down and not the same at all. And we don't really care. We didn't feel robbed, of not getting, us as fans, I think we can all agree, would have gone just fine without the match tonight. But I did think it was interesting because it probably did make a little bit of history there with Bobby Lashley, and he was very dominant, beating Xavier Woods. Xavier put up a good fight and everything, but you knew Lashley's not going to be losing this match to Woods in any way, even with Kofi interference. I would have put Lashley over here 100%. But, I got to say, from top to bottom, I thought this was a decent Raw. A couple of things that made me optimistic. I think we're going to talk about this later too, but I think WWE might have called an audible, possibly, not sure. Maybe we'll hear stories about this, but with Eva Marie and Piper Niven stuff, because everybody was giving WWE a hard time this week for pretending to not know who Piper Niven was, even though she works under that same exact umbrella, and she's in the company already on pay-per-views featured on the WWE Network, all over WWE social media. We all know who she is, and to pretend that she's some newcomer was odd, and maybe WWE listened to the audience, because what they did tonight with Eva Marie, having her pinned after it's been so long since she's wrestled. This is the way they give it to us. Even though she didn't do a whole lot physical, she was still pinned and she lost. And it feels like they're already teasing the split between these two. And Eva Marie, in a backstage segment, took it upon herself to rename this woman. And I guess when they were asking her name, you can see she's trying to say Piper. And then Eva Marie's like, no, that's not your name. It's going to be Dewdrop. And she kind of looks a little, so at least they're playing up like they're giving her a new identity. But I'm not sure if that was the initial plan. I think WWE might have really wanted her to pretend for her to be a brand new person. And the fans were like, we're not fucking stupid. And now they're tweaking it to where it's Eva Marie giving her a new name. But that still doesn't explain why the commentary team didn't know who she was last week. Now they're acting like they know. So it feels like WWE changed gears. And teasing a split 1 week after they debut seems a bit rushed to me and doesn't really seem like that could possibly be the original plan. I'm all for using Eva Marie to introduce Piper Niven, but would you really split them up the first week, or wouldn't you give them some reps on TV before you do it and, let them work a little bit? So that situation seemed odd to me, but I am happy that that ridiculous Dewdrop name, which I never ever knew what the fuck it meant and didn't Google it until tonight. And I was like, oh, no wonder people are like, what the fuck? So that looks like it's temporary based on what we saw here with Piper Niven trying to say her name and, having her name changed by someone else. So naturally, that can't last. So we'll see how long it'll take her just to be Piper Niven, like we all knew she was originally. Feels like that's the direction they're going in. So that's a positive sign. It's them fixing something that they fucked up last week to a degree, even though largely what they did here with Eva Marie was a huge letdown and disappointment. All the Money in the Bank qualifying matches tonight were interesting because we had a lot of upsets, and I'm liking the theme of the field. Now, that theme is going to be changed next week because we have a last chance triple threat match next week for all the losers tonight to attempt to re-qualify. So that's going to be Randy Orton, AJ, and Drew McIntyre. So all those guys have been to the top of the mountain before. One of them seemingly will qualify next week. But everybody else, the AJ and the Morrison and the Riddles, they haven't really made it to the top yet. Never been world champions. A lot of people have been wanting a push for Ricochet for a long time. And he's out there doing nothing, wrestling in jeans. So that's good that he's in there. He's probably only in there, much like the way Kofi used to be in the Money in the Bank matches years ago, to give us a spot is probably what he's there to do. Winning it seems unlikely, but at least he's in it because, my God, does he deserve just to be featured a little bit more. So being in there, he should be able to turn some heads with some crazy spot. Morrison will likely do the same thing. I'm guessing this week on SmackDown we'll get more qualifiers over there, and they'll qualify a bunch, and we'll probably have the field set after one more Raw and SmackDown, or one or two more SmackDowns, one more Raw. Field should be set. So anyway, we'll be talking about all that here tonight. That's your Raw in a nutshell, but we'll go through it a little bit more individually here and match by match. We'll talk to you guys in the chat. Give me your thoughts on the show. Did you think it was a better episode than recent weeks? I thought it was. I thought the matches were good. The match lineup was good prior to the show. I can't believe I'm admitting this and about to say it out loud, but I was like a tiny bit excited for Raw. I know. If you need to unsubscribe, I understand. But I was like, damn, here I was. I actually tweeted out in the afternoon. I'm like, hey, WWE, whenever you're done writing Raw, if you want to shoot a preview our way, that'd be nice. Show's in 2 hours. Sometimes you tell us that there's going to be matches on that show, and when you don't say a word about it all day, makes me think that the old man's going nuts, and you guys are still scribbling down the fucking show 2 hours before you go live, and then they come out on their social media and just blast us with all these great matches set up for tonight. So I'm like, this Raw might be worth watching, and it was. Happy to say that it was. Still not great. Still need to get the hell out of that Thunderdome and get back to business for real. And there was a couple of things on that was head-scratching on the show, but overall, improvement. But, you can't, there's only a certain amount of these weeks you can have. They went hard on the Money in the Bank qualifier, so you had a lot of matches that meant something and had something on the line or was significant to an upcoming pay-per-view. That's not going to be the case next week because you're not going to have so many people needing to qualify. But still, it was a nice, refreshing kind of Thunderdome Raw. I liked it. Still not sure what kind of grade I'm going to give it. It's not going to get an A or anything. Basically, I'm just happy if they don't bore me to fucking sleep, which has happened a lot in the past few months, where I'm literally sitting in this chair, because this is where I usually do my Raw watching, taking down my notes and stuff like that. And between these commercial breaks and these recaps, I am dozing off a lot of times. So they had my attention for most of the evening here. Even though I was in and out of the room and I missed a couple of finishes, might need your guys' help on later on. But let me say hi to everybody that's here in the chat, and then we'll get into all the results and all the good stuff, and we'll talk about any wrestling news that's going on out there, answer questions that you guys might have tonight. And, and we got to talk about our brand new superhero in the company, Nikki Cross, teaming up with Alexa Bliss. They should be called the BSK, batshit crazy. Crazy spelled with a K. You got a superhero and somebody with hypnotic powers. This is absurd. I think this team might actually stick together and just be a whole bundle of craziness. We'll see. I'd rather them go in that direction than what they seem like they're doing with Alexa Bliss. And what a mess. What a mess. What's going on, FRGN? Good to see you. Alexandria is here. Ryan, Fippin, Kane, K-Dog's Kennel. What's up? Waylon Lee, TC, Big J, Mixed Partial Farts, Ungovernable, Raphael, Santo, Big Dog, Matt, George Morris. Appreciate the $5, dude, from you. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? Raw 0 out of 10 this year is the 30-year anniversary of the Detroit Lions' best season. Wow. You're bringing back memories. 12-4 in the NFC Championship, lost 41-10. They lost against the Redskins. I remember that. That would have been, that was 91, and the Super Bowl was in 92. And I remember that was so in, because at school, I lived in North Carolina, and when I was in school, all of the kids around that area at that time were huge bandwagon Cowboy fans, because they were all about the Cowboys. Everybody was a Cowboys fan, because North Carolina at the time didn't have a professional team at all. The Hornets existed, but the Panthers did not. So, everybody was a bandwagon team. Back then, everybody liked the Atlanta Braves. So, those kids just were all bandwagon jumpers. And here I am, a Detroit Lions fan, and I just have to eat so much shit every year because everyone around me decides to be football fans of the best team in the league, while I'm sitting here as a Lions fan just getting picked on and messed with and all that shit. So when the Lions were finally good in 91, it felt really, really good. They had that good record, but they had a very, very easy schedule. But they also had Barry Sanders, who was awesome. And but you knew they were just kind of overmatched. I think they made it to the NFC Championship, faced the Redskins, would have been Mark Rippon and Art Monk, both of who I met just like a month after the Super Bowl. There was a baseball card convention in Raleigh, and they had both come down to do an autograph signing there, and I was able to meet both of them. I was like, thanks for beating my team, guys. Appreciate it. But that's interesting. 30-year anniversary. I remember it well just because of being in school, and everybody had to be a Cowboys fan. Everybody. Little redneck fuckers. Man, I just ate so much shit because the Lions always got their ass kicked. Every time they played the Cowboys, they got the piss beaten out of them. And it was frustrating. Anyway, thanks for bringing back those great memories, George Morris. Good to see you in here. Deshaun Robinson, JJ Legg, Atomic, Cody, Cerebrus, Timothy, Sam, Mikey, Wacky Warrior, Regina, Isaiah, Nathan, JJ Legg with the $2. Thanks, dude. Woods turns on Kofi at Money in the Bank to join Hurt Business. I don't know. It felt like you could maybe set that up with the ending here, with Xavier getting his ass kicked in the cage and Kofi being helpless to do anything about it. But does Kofi, does Bobby Lashley, I should say, require help to beat Kofi Kingston? If they ever do want to set up a match with Lashley and Brock put down Kofi in like 5 seconds. I was there in the audience for that match. That sucked, and he beat him so quickly. If Bobby Lashley requires help to get over Kofi, that doesn't match him well with Lesnar. So I think I think he needs to beat Kofi rather handily. Maybe I don't ever want to see Kofi beat the way Brock beat ever again. He's too good for that. But, I think it should be a victory similar to what he did to Xavier Woods tonight, where Kofi, maybe puts up a fight, but in the end, he's tapped out to the Hurt Lock. And, that could be a little bit of fuel there for if you ever get to Lashley and Lesnar. Looking like it probably won't be SummerSlam, but if it is, great. If it's after the fact, you can still do it then. And, that can be ammunition. I beat Kofi in 5 seconds. Took you half a day to beat him. What makes you think you can beat me? I'm Brock Lesnar. I got a better MMA, record and background than you. I fought in the big time, and he can tout his bullshit. And it would be a fun build, I think, if those two ever came together. Not that this could even tie in, but Kofi winning the title is something I wouldn't mind seeing either. But at this point, I think Lashley just needs, much like Roman, needs challengers in front of him just to get through there, like Roman had Ray, and then move on to SummerSlam for whatever big match they have planned, which, they're thinking Lesnar, Lashley, Roman, Cena, Seth, Edge, all sorts of big stuff for SummerSlam. I hope so. I'm going to be there. So we'll see, how that match goes, but I don't think it would require an Xavier Woods heel turn in order to get the job done. Not saying that the New Day can't split and MVP can't finally get through to one of them. It could happen, but I don't know if it plays into the match or not. It might. What's going on, Maka, Joshua, and Charlie? Don't think I got you guys earlier either. Killer Cam is in the house as well. Jose Lopez, what's up? Regina Reese, I see a lot of pals feuding at SummerSlam. Jinder versus Drew, Kofi versus Woods, Alexa versus Nikki, Orton versus Riddle. Could be. Could be. You got to wonder. I mean, now we've got Riddle in the Money in the Bank, so those two guys probably will not be facing AJ and Omos for the tag team titles. They may actually hold that off until SummerSlam. I feel like Orton and Riddle, if they're not facing each other one-on-one, they're winning the tag team titles, which I think could also be fun. But there's still that weirdness, that dissension. It's going to be interesting now with Riddle qualifying and Orton not qualifying, although he does have a chance to do that next week. If, how Riddle is going to keep bringing it up, maybe accidentally it's going to drive Orton nuts. It was fun. And Nikki and Alexa, I'm the same way. I can see them finally paying off this match, but I almost think that what they're doing with the two of them is so batshit nuts right now. Like, keep them together too. They can almost be like the female version of Orton and Riddle, just a lot more crazy because they're both equally crazy. And that can be kind of fun, for the audience. We need some fun. These wrestling fans, man, these wars between AEW and WWE, the fans angry at everything WWE does in the Thunderdome and the COVID. It's been such a rotten year. Everybody just needs to remove the stick from their assholes and have some fun. So why not just have Nikki and Alexa Bliss win the tag team titles? And just these two, just look at how crazy they look with the way Alexa Bliss looks now and Nikki with her, blue blazer outfit. She looks like Mighty Molly. She looks like the love child of Mighty Molly and a conquistador, just kind of blended together. And if anybody can get that ridiculous gimmick over, it's her. I think we were all like, what the fuck, when we first saw it. But then when you think about who Nikki Cross is and her unbridled enthusiasm, I think that if anybody can make that work, I think it might be her. And I'm not even totally against it. Not anybody else, I've been like, what the hell are they doing? But here, it's just batshit insane enough to work. And that's what happens with WWE sometimes. They fall ass backwards into good things. On the surface is the worst idea in the world, but once it gets out on TV, it might actually work. We'll see. Some of the best shit gets over that way. Got to wonder if Jinder's going to find his way in, too. There was some sort of segment tonight where they were all arguing backstage, Jinder, Jeff, Cedric, I think. So they might be inserted, at some point down the road and getting some last chance match, too, in the Money in the Bank, but I'd hate for Jinder to get in there. So far, a theme, though, with kind of the underdogs qualifying so far. All right, I think that knocks out all of the shout-outs and that sort of thing. We'll start getting into the Raw results. Do me a favor and smash that thumbs up button for me. Make sure you subscribe and tap that notifications bell. Got an interesting week of videos for you this week. We're going to come up here and do a news stream on Thursday again. Whatever's going on in the wrestling world, whether it's a light news day or a heavy news day, we're just going to talk about it. So I'll be up here at about 3 o'clock Pacific, as always, to hang out with you guys for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half at the most, and just kind of shoot the shit about the comings and the goings on in the wrestling world. Saturday, we got a fun one. Saturday, we've got Dynamite. It's a special Dynamite night. We got Jungle Boy challenging Kenny Omega for the AEW title. So I'm off. We're going to do a watch-along Saturday night of AEW Dynamite, and then we'll hang out after the fact and do a review of the show. So join us Saturday night for the watch-along and review. And then Sunday, I'm going to be up here doing something as well. I'm just not sure yet. So you'll see me a lot this week. 4 videos in total, including this one. So stay tuned. It'll be fun. Anyway, let's get into Raw now. Show opens up with Bobby Lashley and MVP setting up the MVP lounge. They make their entrance. Bobby's got the girls with him. They've got the champagne. They sit on the couch, and they're celebrating Bobby Lashley's victory. And that's when the New Day shows up on the stage, Kofi Kingston and Xavier. They've got a cart with toast or something. They bring out some food to offer to Bobby or something, and they start exchanging some words on the mic. And Kofi essentially lays down the challenge to Bobby Lashley for Money in the Bank, which Lashley immediately accepts. Completely fearless. Of course, you want a title shot? Fuck you. I'll kill you. Yeah, challenge accepted. But then they continue with the attack on Xavier Woods, the verbal attack on Xavier Woods, and they come to book a Hell in the Cell or a match between Bobby Lashley and Xavier for tonight on Raw. And then they throw the swerve at you at the end that the match is actually going to be in the Hell in the Cell. So I guess they forgot to take it down, and they're like, oh, shit, it's still there. Let's use it. But really, we know what this is. This is about giving USA Network their Hell in the Cell match, so they'll stop freaking out like a bunch of little babies, I guess. So they booked that. It would have been interesting. I'm surprised that didn't get leaked out because if this would have been fans would have seen that. When the doors open, they would have been tweeting, the cell is hanging up there, and, that means they're going to use it tonight. So they booked this, like I said earlier, what appears to be, it's very transparent. It seems like they are giving USA Network a Hell in the Cell match because USA Network made a stink about them moving the other one off Hell in the Cell and onto SmackDown with Roman and Rey Mysterio. So they were upset about that, which is just absurd and ludicrous because why would you even give a shit? We don't. We would have been fine without it tonight. They didn't hate it, but at the same time, it's like I said earlier, Hell in the Cells are a shell of what they used to be. So I don't even know why USA Network cared that much. It just seems so petty and meaningless in the grand scheme of things when WWE's got so many bigger problems, right now than that. And I just don't know why they even cared. So they made a stink. WWE, I guess this is their way of saying, sorry, we did that. Here's your Hell in the Cell match. It's like a sibling being jealous of one sibling having a toy. I want it too, So here's your fucking toy. So they booked it simply for the USA Network purposes, which is just ridiculous, but it is kind of a cool concept that we're getting Hell in the Cell matches on back-to-back nights with one of the participants working in back-to-back matches, and that makes Lashley look pretty badass. First match we got on the show was a Money in the Bank qualifier. All the matches basically tonight, other than the main event, I believe, were Money in the Bank qualifiers because they had 5 of them. AJ Styles taking on Ricochet, and as soon as this match started, I'm like, AJ's got the title right now. Put it on, let Ricochet win this. He'd be perfect for that. He could do a spot or whatever. AJ does not even really need to be in this. So I was kind of hoping for that. And it was a good match between the two of them. Ricochet, I feel like, has, not been doing much. None of us have been too enamored with anything he's done, and I feel like he's so good and should get back on the winning track at some point. So this could be a start of it, even though I think he's an extreme underdog to actually win the briefcase. He'll be in that match. He'll be memorable. He'll do something crazy, and that's exciting. So he got a little bit of help here because Omos was out there at ringside, so the Viking Raiders came out there as well. And Omos, I think he goes for like a tackle on both of them or something, and they move out of the way, and he spears himself through the barricade. And I didn't even catch the finish here. All I know is Ricochet was able to win. I think he rolled him up, didn't catch it. I was kind of pissed, and I couldn't even catch the finish anywhere on Twitter either, so I have no idea how he won. I just know it was kind of quick, and it caught AJ off guard and a little bit of an upset there. So I like that, and as soon as that match was over, I said, man, I hope that's the theme with all these other matches. I hope it's the underdog that wins. I hope it's the guy that hasn't been champion yet that wins. And that would be a fun field for the Money in the Bank because I think this year they should focus on maybe making a really exciting Money in the Bank. It's going to be only the second show with fans, the first being the Friday prior for the Go Home SmackDown. So that crowd's going to be jacked at Money in the Bank. So you need some Ricochets. You need some Riddles. You need guys like that in there. And, they're going to do amazing shit. John Morrison, same thing. So I think a lot of them are there to really make this a high-octane, really high-flying type of Money in the Bank, which, when you compare it to what they did last year, which was largely considered a failure, even though I applaud their effort for trying something different, that doing both matches at the same time inside the headquarters, yeah, we need something fun this year. So I like the theme that they were going with. We cut backstage after that to Randy Orton and Matt Riddle. Riddle scoots up there on a scooter, and he's got more RK Bro merchandise everywhere. Starts talking about his stash of Whoppers, which was funny, and said that he's scared of the Burger King guy because he's creepy and he's going to steal his Whoppers. And he touts some of the merchandise a little bit. Riddle winds up laying out this, because they both have qualifying matches tonight, so he lays out this long scenario of winning the Money in the Bank briefcase and cashing in, and basically the scenario ends in a clash between the two of them. And he says, "Isn't that awesome? Or wouldn't that be awesome?" And Randy Orton just goes, "Not for you." So Randy Orton is still reluctant to accept this goofball into his heart. We'll see how long that happens. And the story is not over because they both have matches later on. Then we go backstage to Eva Marie and Doudrop making their way to the ring, I guess. They're interrupted. I forgot which person was interviewing them. And they ask Eva Marie who this person is backing her up. And like I said earlier, that's when she tries to say her name, and you can read her lips. She's clearly trying to say Piper. And Eva interrupts her and says, no, you are. And she kind of looks her up and down. You're Doudrop. So they made it seem like she named her right there. And Piper seems, a little bit miffed and a little bit confused. And like I said earlier, this is good because this tells me that this Doudrop shit is temporary. And with Piper kind of being aware that her name is Piper, she's like, okay, or whatever. And then later on, as we'll talk about here in a minute, they do the tease. So we go to commercial, we come back. We've got the tag team match now. This is a Money in the Bank qualifying match as well, even though it's a tag team match. The winning team, both members qualify. So you've got Asuka and Naomi taking on Eva Marie and Doudrop. So the match starts. Eva Marie is actually going to start the match. So I'm like, she's about to lock up with Asuka, and I'm like, surely she's going to tag out. There's no way they're going to drag this whole thing with her not getting physical in the ring all this time, all this many years, for her just to randomly lock up with Asuka now. So I saw that tag out coming a mile away. But then later on, she finds herself back in the ring, and Doudrop just decides not to tag her, jumps off the aprons like, fuck you. And she winds up getting rolled up. I think it's by Naomi. I think it is Naomi because she took the loss last week. Naomi rolls up Eva Marie and pins her. And Asuka and Naomi win. They both now qualify for the women's Money in the Bank match. And they've already began the split between Eva and Doudrop. So like we talked about at the opening here, does this, this feels to me like they kind of called an audible here. I can't imagine this being the actual plan. I can't imagine them having this intent the entire time to turn Doudrop against Eva this quickly, because we talked about last week in the demeanor there when she hugged Eva Marie and she's like, ew, or whatever. I'm like, okay, you can see where that's going easily. Eva Marie is going to abuse and take advantage of Piper Niven, or whatever her name was going to be. Last week was because we didn't know. And eventually Doudrop would get fed up with this and turn on her or tell her to fuck off or whatever, and we'd be getting a babyface turn out of her. She'd basically go Alex Riley on Eva Marie or something like that, and you kind of build to that while Eva is just a, just horrible, abusive monster to Doudrop for a few weeks. The fact that they started this right off the bat makes me wonder if they just decided to change gears here and say, okay, the fans aren't going to accept this new name. Let's turn it into a storyline where maybe she's going to be Doudrop for a little while, and then we change her back into Piper Niven because the fans feel like their intelligence is insulted. And if that's all been changed because of the backlash they got from last week, that's great, but I still wish the announcers wouldn't have pretended like they didn't know who she is last week, when this week they're acting like they know her name is not Doudrop. So a lot of just holes and continuity problems this company always had, and this is one of the more frustrating instances. And there's no reason why they shouldn't, because every time somebody comes up from an NXT brand, they say who they are. They say who they're acting like this person's never been around. It's just, you know what I mean. So it's comforting to know that they are changing this. And at some point, she's not. It looks like she's not going to be known as Doudrop forever. She'll probably go back to Piper based on what we saw here tonight. So that is a good sign for the future. And a not so good sign, we got next what we knew we would get, a confirmation on another title match for Rhea Ripley defending against Charlotte. The only problem I have with this is that it's so stupid. Last night we talked about this, that dumb disqualification they did in that match just to get to another match, and it was how it was done. It was Rhea holding onto the table, and the top panel comes flying off and bashes Charlotte in the head, and the ref DQs her. Now we have Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce in the ring like a couple of disappointed parents summoning Rhea Ripley to the ring to chastise her for something that like everybody does. Have I been asleep for 20 years? Or doesn't everybody get their head rammed into the table in like every match? Even in no-holds-barred matches, isn't this like a regular thing? Don't people go flying into the steps all the time? Surely this happens all the time in regular matches, unless I've just completely dreamt the last quarter century in wrestling. So I found it weird last night that she even got disqualified for that to begin with, instead of just warned or the referee does a 10 count or whatever. And now Sonya and Adam are out here acting like Rhea Ripley brought a switchblade into the ring and sliced an artery here on Charlotte or something. And, they have a talk with her, very serious talk or whatever. Charlotte comes out to the ramp before anything is really said in the ring, wants her rematch, says, go ahead and tell her. And Sonya says, okay, we're going to grant Charlotte's request for a rematch. We feel that she has grounds for one. And that's all we had to say. And Rhea's like, okay, fine, cool. So you got the Money in the Bank match again. At the next pay-per-view, it's going to be Rhea defending again against Charlotte. The only good thing about that is it keeps Charlotte out of the Money in the Bank match. The only bad thing, she could walk out as champion. If Charlotte did win the title, I would love to see a one-night cash-in. I mean, you talk about, I want to see one briefcase last a little bit, but if you want to capitalize on that hot initial first crowd, having Charlotte win and the fans shit their pants in anger, and then hopefully, if it's a babyface that wins the Money in the Bank match prior to this match happening, assuming that it does happen first, like if it opens the show and a babyface wins it, give me your candidates. One would be awesome. One would be Nikki Cross, based on everything they've been through already in this little tiny storyline, for her to win it and then come and upset Charlotte as that superhero character. You don't think that would get a pop at Money in the Bank? I think it would. So you could put the title on Charlotte just for a minute, because it would give her another title on her resume, of course. So you'd knock out another, kill a bird there with that stone. And you would probably get pop of the year if somebody like Nikki Cross or another beloved female babyface comes out and cashes in on Charlotte. That would be one instance where I'm like, okay, I'm cool with Rhea dropping the belt. If they do that and the crowd goes nuts, it'd be like such a range of emotions for them, because they'd be pissed at first, but then when the cash-in happens, it would just turn to just a euphoric ovation and attitude in the crowd. So that would be fun if they went something like that. If they really, really, really want to have some fun and just give the fans, a big blast, say we are back and we are not playing any games, that would be a good way to do it. Who knows? We'll see. After that, after the tag team match there, after Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce's discussion with Rhea and Charlotte, we go to another spot backstage. They basically just copied and pasted what they did last week, which was already stupid as it was, with the combination photo shoot workout thing. So I think last week you had Mandy and Dana doing a photo shoot, but the ring is just like 30 feet away and people are taking bumps in it, so they get pissed, and it's Natty and what's-her-face, Tamina, in there working out, and then there's a little brawl or scuffle or something completely stupid. They do the same thing this week. They just reverse roles. So whatever. Then we get John Morrison taking on Randy Orton in a Money in the Bank qualifying match. I was hoping they would do something with Morrison getting the victory here with Riddle screwing up or whatever, and that's exactly what they did. Miz, this was so great. The Miz is out there. He's in the wheelchair. He's backing up John Morrison. They wrestle for a few minutes, and Miz winds up from his wheelchair on the outside of the ring spraying Randy Orton in the face with whatever that shit is, the drip stick or whatever. So he's pissed. This prompts Matt Riddle to come out on his scooter, and Riddle is chasing Miz, who's rolling in his wheelchair, and he's being chased by Riddle in a scooter. That popped me. That was hilarious. In the end, I kind of took my eye off the ball here and didn't catch exactly what happened, but Riddle he did not provide the help that he came out there to attempt, and he wound up distracting Randy Orton long enough for Morrison to capitalize and hit him with the Starship Pain for the win, and Orton is a little bit pissed at Riddle now. So that was kind of interesting that they had that tie in there, and then as soon as that happened and I realized that Riddle was out there and he was going to be a part of this, I'm like, okay, one of these guys needs to qualify and the other doesn't. And it would be really funny and really fun if it was Riddle that was the one that qualified and Randy Orton didn't. So, because that would just be fun stuff backstage, because Riddle wouldn't intentionally rub it in, but he would rub it in all the time without even knowing it. He would probably bring it up, constantly bring up his Money in the Bank match, and it would just needle Orton. And he wouldn't intend to piss Orton off, but because he's so foolish and idiotic, but Orton would grow more and more frustrated. So I was really hoping that later on, when Riddle had his match, that he would come up on the winning end, especially in storyline. Drew McIntyre isn't 100%. So I thought they were setting up for yet another upset later on, and that was the theme tonight. Where the underdogs won all of these qualifying matches, and that's good. So after that was when we got the really bizarre tag team match that's also a Money in the Bank qualifier. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler taking on Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. The winning team qualifies for the Money in the Bank match. So Nia and Shayna, I believe, come out first, followed by Alexa Bliss, who has new theme music. I thought it was crazy, and I was like, did she have this last night? And I was just asleep, but this was the debut of it, apparently. And it was a little interesting, kind of had like a hard rock tone to it. I think there was even some singing or some lyrics involved there, and most people that I saw on social media liked it. They had good things to say about the song, or they at least thought it was decent. So Alexa debuts some new music, and just when you think things can't get any crazier, as we're waiting for Nikki Cross to come out, they cut backstage to Gorilla to a close-up of Nikki Cross's face, and she's wearing a blue mask, like a blue superhero mask, but all you see is her face. And she starts talking about the spirit. We have to embody the spirit of the fighting spirit, or how she in her accent was so adorable. So she's talking about that, and then the camera kind of pans back, and she's wearing this full-on, like, Mighty Molly-inspired ring gear, kind of like the Hurricane or Mighty Molly or a Conquistador or the Blue Blazer. A lot of comparisons to the Blue Blazer as well. She looked ridiculous, but still pretty funny. Like, if that kid shows up at my door on Halloween, she's getting all the candy. Here's the whole bucket, kid. You're too cute. Take all the candy. Goodbye. Lights are off. No more kids are allowed coming. So she looked pretty funny, and she seemed into it, even though we were all like, what the hell are they doing? This is so ridiculous. Like, what does this even mean? We've all been kind of disappointed about Nikki's usage anyway. And then when they've been bringing her out on TV lately, it's been in these weird beat the clock situations, and she hasn't really looked like anything other than a fucking goofball. Now you're dressing her up as a superhero. Not that this can't work, not that this hasn't worked before. We can't completely shit on this when we also look back with fond memories on gimmicks like the Hurricane. That was completely absurd, and we ate it up. So let's at least give this one a chance and understand and appreciate, like I've said, I think in the last 2 or 3 weeks on this podcast, how much I appreciate Nikki Cross's unrelenting positive outlook on everything and her enthusiasm, and she seems ready to do business all the time, no matter what. I hope this isn't some sort of a backstage rib with management amusing themselves. Let's see how much crazy shit we can get this girl to agree to. But she is the one person I think in the company that could probably get this over, and she'll be pretty damn entertaining. She kind of displayed a few new moves here. Not sure if she's going to have superpowers. I don't think she has superpowers. Hopefully she won't lift up the ring or anything, but she's paired now with Alexa Bliss, who apparently has mind control powers and hypnosis powers. Now you've got Wonder Woman with her. This is a really interesting little team here, and maybe they've grown closer back together, because they've had the long history, and if they now find common ground and they both basically just go nuts and embrace each other's craziness, this could be an extremely entertaining duo, and I'd love to see these two win the tag team titles at some point. So they are both going to be in Money in the Bank. Excuse me. That should be really interesting, but and if they wind up clashing in the end here, and how this new character of Nikki Cross is going to evolve. Because like I said, she was trying out some things tonight in the match. It should be noted too that Alexa did do some more of her mind control stuff. She almost gets Reginald to slap Nia Jax. Alexa's up on the top turnbuckle looking down at Reginald. She starts to control him, and he goes to slap Nia, and then he stops. And Nia's like, what the hell? And then in the ring, while all this is going on, Nikki Cross is able to roll up and cradle Shayna Baszler for the win. So Nikki got the pin for her team. Her and Alexa Bliss now qualify for Money in the Bank. And Nikki appears to have a completely new gimmick that is completely batshit nuts on the surface. But you never know. If anybody can get this shit over, it's her. She's great. We're pulling for her. Let's see how fun this can be. Like I said, back in the days of the Hurricane and Mighty Molly, I just think a lot of the writing was a little bit better, and some of the stuff, it was easier to laugh at. I think WWE, doesn't have that ability to be that funny anymore. But like I said, certain gimmicks work because they're put on the absolute right person, and I think this does not work with anybody except possibly Nikki Cross. So we'll see. Here on the channel, we're going to give it a chance. We're going to give it a chance because it might just be the nice breath of fresh air comedy that we need, and it might actually translate into more TV time, and who knows, even some championships for Nikki Cross. Imagine if she wins the Money in the Bank in front of that crowd. WWE will know that the fans care about her because they seem to be oblivious to that. But if she grabs that briefcase and the crowd pops their balls off, how can you ignore that? How can you possibly ignore that? WWE, I'm sure, could do it, but they'd be bullshitting themselves if they did, because I think Nikki can be over. So right now, she's my early pick. I'm rooting for her. I'm rooting for her to win the Money in the Bank as a superhero. And who knows? I guess she's still going to be called Nikki Cross. I don't think she has some sort of superhero name. That might come later. Maybe some alterations or adjustments to her attire, because it's pretty basic right now. It's just blue and gold with like a butterfly on it. So I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what to make of it. What do you guys think of that whole situation? My God. Anyway, we go backstage after that to Drew McIntyre in an interview. Drew is aware and has heard of T-shirts, right? He knows they exist. Just checking. He is putting over how injured he is. His back was a mess, just covered in welts. And so they're selling the deal here where he's extremely banged up, a lot less than 100%, and he's got to face Riddle later on in the Money in the Bank qualifier. And last night, I didn't realize this until after the review. It was all over social media, but I guess during the table spot in Hell in a Cell where Drew took the bump onto the outside, there was a crash pad there. And during the pay-per-view, you could see a hand, a mysterious hand from underneath the ring, like push some table parts out the ring. So, I mean, the show, or out from under the ring. So the show was live, but the camera angle made it to where you didn't see Drew hitting the floor. And I guess they might have tried to shove the crash pad under the ring and then shove the table parts back out in time for the camera to pan back over. But you caught that hand. So you combine that with another big mistake they made last night in the Charlotte and Rhea Ripley match, where Charlotte is kicking into the air. I guess she thought the hard cam red light was on. So, you know, the depth wasn't going to show her actually making contact with Rhea Ripley. But when you saw the side camera shot, you know, she's just kicking the air. She's kicking John Cena. Either that or she's joining the Dark Order. That would make a lot of sense. There's already a mole over there. She has her fiance in AEW. She's doing Phantom Offense. I think she might turn up in AEW, y'all. So those two things were a little bit ridiculous, but I'm going to defend the crash pad because, you know, if you have the ability in the Thunderdome to cheat, do it. You know, what's the point of Drew McIntyre taking a flat back bump through a table onto the floor if he doesn't have to? You know, if you have the ability for a short, condensed amount of time in this Thunderdome to do some things that, you know, would maybe extend a wrestler's career or not make them take an unnecessary bump because you have the ability to edit, do it. They got all their career to take the bump. So if it would have been executed well and the trick wouldn't have been exposed, then it wouldn't have been a big deal. But I'm certainly not going to complain about that. I'm actually cool with that because, you know, if I'm Drew McIntyre, I'm like, oh, cool. They're going to, you know, not have me break my back for no reason on a meaningless pay-per-view that everybody's shitting on and says they don't care about. So them taking advantage of some of the benefits to the Thunderdome, like the editing and like some stuff that you can do here and there that you can't get away with in front of a live crowd, I'm okay with that because it's not going to be able to happen for much longer because the Thunderdome only has now 6 shows left, I think, until we get to Money in the Bank. So we're getting there. It's the home stretch now, but it was a little Bush League that you saw, you know, the stunt being done. But I think they've done some crazier things in the Thunderdome than that, and I'm actually all right with that because the two guys still beat the shit out of each other, even though that was a little bit ridiculous. It was still a brutal match and good up until the stupid roll-up finish. We then go to an argument with Cedric Alexander, Jeff Hardy, Jinder Mahal arguing over the Money in the Bank. Adam Pearce shows up along with Sheamus, and Sheamus wants to get on this argument as well. And he goes, hey, I want to be in the Money in the Bank too. And Adam Pearce goes, oh, you do? So that means you're good. If you want to be in the Money in the Bank, that means you must be good to go and your nose is fully healed. And Sheamus is like, oh, no, it still hurts. Ow, no, ow, ow. So he still wants to try to milk this injury so he doesn't have to inevitably defend the United States title. And Adam Pearce basically just tells these guys that all of the qualifying matches are final, so fuck off, and I think they kind of threaten to maybe take matters into their own hands. Also, Sheamus gets away with saying gobshites again, which I never knew what that was until I Googled that. I didn't know what gobshite was or dewdrop was until like a week ago. So he says that again, which was funny. And I guess now they're making it seem like these guys, specifically Jinder, could maybe target a current Money in the Bank qualifier or maybe interfere in a Money in the Bank qualifying match. And since we still have multiple Raws until Money in the Bank, I wouldn't be surprised because they wouldn't go through all this shit if they weren't going to do anything. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they jump in to that McIntyre, AJ, and Orton match next week and maybe cause a fuck up because you can always do something the next week and stretch out these qualifyings. I think that we'll still get, you know, somebody making it in at the last minute in 2 weeks from now or something like that. I don't think you're just going to qualify everybody right in the first show or whatever. So that could happen next week. Otherwise, I don't know what the point of this was and if it's a way to set up one of these 4 guys finding their way into the match some way or another. Maybe one of them jumps over to SmackDown and interferes and gets involved in a match over there and gets himself booked or somehow they can make some storyline bullshit up. After that, we get the Drew McIntyre and Riddle match. Money in the Bank qualifier here. Again, Drew McIntyre selling the fact that he's not 100%. They have a pretty good beefy fight here, these guys. Riddle was doing some pretty impressive stuff, including a Claymore counter into a submission or a choke or something like that looked pretty good. And he nearly, gets his head taken off a couple of times by McIntyre. McIntyre's fighting, but he's clearly just beaten down. And Randy Orton winds up coming to the stage, and as soon as I saw him out there, I'm like, you know what, Randy Orton, everybody on Twitter is like, oh, he's going to come out there and cost Riddle the match. And I'm like, the right dynamic here is to have one qualify and one not. It's no fun if neither one of them qualify, because what you need to do is have it different so Riddle can just annoy or unintentionally needle the shit out of Randy Orton. I think that can be fun for segments backstage. It would be much more fun if Riddle won over McIntyre. And plus, McIntyre's got that stipulation where he can't challenge for the title. At least they acknowledged that here tonight on commentary, which I appreciated. And they're like, well, this might be a loophole for him to get a championship match against Lashley. And they even referred to the fact that he's got a full year to do it. And the stipulation to not be able to challenge Lashley can still stay in place, but the likelihood of Lashley holding the title for a calendar year is somewhat unlikely, and they kind of made mention of that. So they made it sound that Drew still can win the briefcase. His stipulation against Lashley means nothing, but I do not see this company going with another McIntyre and Lashley match, at least in the short term. Maybe that's something they want to do down the road and give Drew his victory back or whatever, but the last person in the company right now that I would have win that Money in the Bank briefcase is Drew McIntyre. He may very well qualify next week, but I really hope he doesn't. I would just keep him out of that situation entirely. Set something up for him for SummerSlam or after SummerSlam, and maybe even a potential heel turn. So anyway, getting back to the match here, Matt Riddle is able to win the match. Again, didn't quite catch the finish, or I don't have it written down. I'm sorry. I was trying to get ready for the stream here, but I did catch the end. Saw, Riddle celebrating, coming up to the ramp, and Randy Orton's kind of staring at him, very sternly. And Riddle goes, "Randy, what's wrong?" Just like a little kid. "You can talk to me, bro. I'm there for you." Just hilarious shit. And Orton just seems steaming mad. So now Orton is out. Riddle is in. Orton does have another chance, next week to qualify. That might be interesting if he does make it in, because then you have Orton and Riddle in there together, potentially fighting for the same prize. That could be fun, but I still think it would be even more fun if just one of them and Riddle remains the qualifier and Randy Orton doesn't. In terms of Drew McIntyre, a lot of talk about what he can do at SummerSlam. He tweeted out, he didn't tweet. He said in some sort of an interview, I didn't see who he did it with. It was floating around social media today, where he said somewhere that John Cena and Drew McIntyre is the biggest match you can have at SummerSlam, which had a lot of people laughing and saying, no, that's absurd. That's not the match we want to see. We don't give a shit about seeing John Cena and Drew McIntyre. Would much rather see Cena and Roman. Even Cena and Lashley would be somewhat more intriguing to me than Cena and McIntyre. And McIntyre, I don't really, in my head, have factored into one of those two big mega matches. So the fact that he said that makes me think he could be playing into something there, or it could be a way for WWE to get him involved in one of those two big matches and make it a triple threat. But what I would much rather see is just this slow, kind of subtle teases of an eventual heel run by McIntyre, because I think we can agree that the fans are really not as high on him as they maybe were when he won the Royal Rumble prior to COVID. And I can feel a little bit of that Bret Hart type of stuff with him, where McIntyre's been working his ass off and he knows it, and he's given everything, and he treats the business and he treats the championship and he treats his matches and his opponents and his feuds extremely seriously. Arguably more serious than anyone. He's extremely dedicated and driven. He's gotten himself into an incredible shape, and he just devotes everything, sacrifices everything for this, and the fans don't appreciate him for it. So this could be an excellent way for him to have one of those you fans turned on me type of heel runs. And maybe he's not, maybe you just don't book him for SummerSlam, or you book him in a lower card match against someone, kind of like you did to Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13 when he wrestled against Steve Austin in that famous I Quit match. What happened in the main event? A bitter, angry, and jealous and frustrated Bret Hart, 6 days removed from the "this is bullshit" shoot in the ring in the cage match on Raw, where he pushed down Vince McMahon and started swearing. Shoot, quote, air quotes. Just a few days after that, comes out there, gets involved in the Undertaker and Sid title match at WrestleMania 13, and gets involved and, was a little bit, was instrumental in the outcome. clotheslining Sid over the top rope, who walked right into a tombstone. I thought that was an odd way to have The Undertaker win. It was a good way to highlight what a douche Brett was, but Undertaker, in my mind, didn't need any help to beat Sid. Undertaker was awesome. So that was his moment to win clean. Brett took that away from him, and maybe McIntyre can do the same thing. Maybe he can crash one of these big matches and either cause a disqualification, which I'm going to be at SummerSlam, and I am not going to want to see a disqualification anywhere, but he could come out there and potentially cost someone the match. If he feels he should be facing Cena, maybe he comes out and crashes Roman and Cena and lays out both, or helps one beat the other, and that gets WWE out of a situation of having to beat somebody clean. You know, especially if Lesnar and Cena are both going to be there. Right now, Cena's feeling like a lock. Lesnar's up in the air. But if they are both there, and those are your 4 big names, Roman, Cena, Lashley, and Brock, who the fuck loses? You know, especially if someone like Cena is going to be back a little bit more long-term, or at least for a short run or a partial run. I don't know if you beat him on night 1. So, I don't know. McIntyre, I think, should go heel. McIntyre, I think, should be bitter and angry and kind of act a little bit the way Bret Hart acted before when he started forming the Hart Foundation and the Canada versus USA thing. He felt wronged by the fans. He felt unappreciated. Felt like he was killing himself, and the fans instead were cheering people that, you know, he felt he was much better than and that didn't deserve it. So McIntyre can kind of tap into a little bit of those same type of emotions, I think, and make a heel turn work, and would probably, you know, at this point probably be better for him in terms of, you know, fan acceptance and stuff, because even with fans back, I'm not quite sure what kind of a live, loud reaction he's going to get. I'm a McIntyre fan. I don't think anybody that's like bored or upset with McIntyre necessarily doesn't like him. I think we all appreciate his ability and stuff. I would never use the word overrated to describe McIntyre. I'd use the word underrated, you know, because he was underrated for a long time. And when he came back and reinvented himself, you know, on the indies and internationally, and came back in NXT as a completely different type of performer and into a badass that he is today, this hybrid of, you know, of a Scott Hall and a Rick Rude, you know, just a badass motherfucker, exactly what you would want in a wrestler in terms of just an overall outline, look, and molding. You know, he's got it all. But, you know, something's missing there with the babyface run, and, you know, he's just not generating, I guess, the reaction that he probably was when he first won the Royal Rumble prior to COVID last year. So I'd turn this dude heel at this point, but who knows? What I want and what WWE wants are usually 2 different things. Didn't really catch what was going on backstage with Jackson Riker, Mansoor, and Ali, but I do know that a strap match is set for next week between Jackson Riker and Elias, so Elias will have nowhere to run next week against Jackson, and hopefully they'll blow off that ridiculous, boring-ass feud next week with likely a Riker victory, you would have to think. After that was when they announced the last chance match for next week. Triple threat, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, and Drew McIntyre. Winner of that seemingly will qualify for the Money in the Bank. You know, that's, of course, if they don't decide to do some sort of an interference, or if Jeff or Jinder or Sheamus or Cedric or somebody interferes, fucks up the match to where they have to rebook it or alter it for next week, or the week after, I should say. So that could happen. Not completely convinced we're going to get a straight-up victory there. And I guess that also means, since we had 3 people qualifying tonight on Raw and 1 will qualify next week, that must mean there's 8 participants in the Money in the Bank, and we'll get 4 from SmackDown. Which 4 are we getting? Kevin Owens today on Twitter, or maybe it was last night, tweeted out that he's going to be taking a break. He said he fought real hard, but he needs to take a break. So I don't know if that's storyline or if he got legit hurt last night, because some people were speculating that he might have been legit knocked goofy, you know, might have had a legitimate shoulder injury, maybe even some sort of a tear, might even have a concussion the way Sammy kicked his head off in the corner. So wish a speedy recovery to Kevin Owens, work or kayfabe, don't know, whatever, get back quickly, and would love for him to be in Money in the Bank. Another guy from SmackDown is Big E. I think Big E would probably be the best, along with Kevin Owens, be the 2 best babyface choices for the briefcase for the men. Otherwise, the briefcase really works well on heels, but certain babyfaces can do it and do it well, and I think Kevin Owens would be super entertaining. So would Big E, because he'd be putting pancakes and shit in the briefcase, and God knows what else, pudding, you name it, it would be in there. And those guys would be great for baby faces. I'd also like to see Sammy qualify because he'd be a great heel. Sami Zayn with the briefcase, he might be the one I'd be rooting for the most, even though I don't see it happening. So we'll see what happens Friday, but I'm sure we'll have a stacked SmackDown as well. We'll be talking about that on Saturday night. That leaves us on Raw with the main event, Hell in a Cell match between Bobby Lashley and Xavier Woods. Back-to-back Hell in a Cell matches for Lashley, regardless of, what the condition of the Hell in a Cell matches are now and what they mean. It's still pretty awesome if you can do them back-to-back nights, which Lashley is doing here. And Xavier Woods put up a good fight. That's all I was expecting out of Xavier Woods here, is for him just to have a good outing, continue to show all of us what we already know, and to show WWE management what an awesome fucking worker this guy is. And you should do more with him. And he did well in this match. He took the beating, delivered one as well, really fought hard against Lashley, displayed a great underdog fighting spirit throughout the whole thing. But in the end, this is Lashley we're talking about. And he's able to put the Hurt Lock on. I have got to do better with this cord, this micro USB. It's extremely loose in my microphone, and just a small tap of the wire will disconnect it sometimes. So I apologize for that, but we're back. Sometimes I talk with my hands, and I get myself too excited. Anyway, like I was saying about Lashley and Woods and Kofi and that whole match, Hell in a Cell in the main event, it was Lashley who eventually was able to tap out Xavier in the Hurt Lock rather quickly. Xavier immediately taps out, but after the match, MVP is able to force his way into the cell, and he locks himself in there, locking Kofi Kingston out. And Lashley continues the assault a little bit more on Xavier Woods, locking him in the Hurt Lock some more, and then shoving his face up to the cage so Kofi can watch his friend just get brutalized here. So that did a pretty good job, I think, of telling the story for Kofi and Lashley at Money in the Bank. I mean, you got to have some heat there, and you got to get Kofi really, really, really angry, since all MVP and Bobby Lashley have been doing to Kofi verbally is doubting him and telling him that he's not who he used to be, and he lost this. Lashley didn't say to who. It would have been awesome if they had a Lesnar name drop tonight, but they didn't. In the earlier segment to open the show, Lashley, showed the belt to Kofi, and he goes, "You lost this." And I was like, please say you lost it to Brock. Just to mention, just for Brock Lesnar's name to come out of his mouth, regardless of context, would have been cool. But they didn't bring it up. So, maybe that still means that they're not quite sure what they're going to do there. But I think this is a good title match for Lashley to have between now and SummerSlam. Much like Roman beating Ray, this needs to be just a victory for Lashley on his road into SummerSlam. And if he does pick up a victory against Kofi on his way there, much like Brock had that famous win over Kofi himself, that can be used in whatever match you have. But I think I'm looking ahead where there's a really, really solid chance that Brock isn't even going to be at SummerSlam, and here I am discussing scenarios for his matches. We have a pretty decent audience in here, but a shitty amount of likes. Can you guys help me out and smash that thumbs up button? I appreciate it. I need to start offering money for likes or something. Help me out. Let me cruise over here and knock out some super chats that have been rolling in since I've been rambling on Raw. Now we can get to the questions part, speculation stuff, talk about what we might see at SummerSlam, all that goodness. Let me scroll all the way back. I got you earlier, JJ, and I'm going to start with Chris Ludecki. What's up, man? Sorry that it's taken me so long to get you your $2 super chat. What is the most popular dish at my restaurant? I don't know. We change our menu a lot. I might go short ribs. Short ribs. We got a good short rib dish there. Joshua Aparicio, welcome back, man. Appreciate the $5 from you. I would like to see the New Day triple threat at a pay-per-view, and winner faces Lashley for the title. Maybe MVP recruits Big E to the Hurt Business. I'd be into that. Getting MVP involved or getting Big E involved, though, might be tough, although we do have the draft coming up, which could realign the New Day at some point. If they want to go in that direction. And in terms of the Hurt Business, I don't even know what the status of the Hurt Business is. Is that still a thing? because there's nobody there anymore except for MVP and Lashley. So if they start adding new members, maybe one of the New Day guys could be one of those members, maybe. But it's going to take a lot to break up that brotherhood, you know? They're always going to make you think they're going to do it, and I'm not sure if they ever will. And I talked about that. I kind of I'm not sold on it. Like, if they break them up, I don't think I'd be that upset, but there is a part of me that at this point, since they've been together so long, I kind of treat it like the Undertaker streak. I'm like, I just kind of want to see them stay together because they've always been a bright spot in this weird new modern era of wrestling. I've always liked New Day. Tomas, good to see you, man. Appreciate the $5 from you as well, and welcome back. Hey, Greg, hope you're doing well. Great American Bash is on your birthday. Nice. Looking forward to the crowds getting back in 25 days. Can somebody shoot me a date on the day at Great American Bash? I don't even know when that is. I got to make plans for that so we can be doing reviews, shit like that. 25 days. Yeah, is that where we're at now for the fans coming back? That's true. Less than a month. Home stretch. Chris Miner, thanks for the $10 from you, man. Appreciate it. Sup, Greg? I decided I'm going to tune out until fans come back. My coworker and I had a good wrestling debate. Who was the biggest second or third generation flop? For me, it was David Sammartino. He's up there. David Sammartino, David Flair, Scott Putski. Oh, God. I mean, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of flops. I mean, what was the member of Legacy? The third guy, the Samoan guy. Felt like he was a pretty big flop. I forgot whose kid he even was. He didn't work out. Ted DiBiase himself really didn't work out that great. There have been a lot. I could probably think of a lot more, too. I can think of a lot. I just have to, dedicate some time to think about that. I'm not sure. But I don't blame you for tuning out until fans come back. Things are going to get progressively better. And like I said, tonight was a step in the right direction. The WWE is now getting ready for fans coming back as well. So they're starting to set the table for what they have planned when fans come back, which means, in theory, that the show should be at least a little bit better quality leading up to that point. So it might be worth at least peeking at the product, Chris. Don't give up yet. I don't know where Damian Priest is, man. What are they doing with him? I don't even think they know. They don't even know. Deshaun, there you are, man. Good to see you. Appreciate the $5 from you. Last night, Owens said he needs a little break, so I have Cesaro, Rollins, Zayn, and Nakamura in Money in the Bank. I don't think Big E and Apollo feud is over. Okay. Yeah, I'd really like to get Big E into the match. That would be awesome. But yeah, maybe he's going to get another run with the IC title. I don't know. Yeah, Owens saying, we talked about that earlier. You probably wrote that before I even said it. But Owens saying he needed a little break. Hopefully that's not to nurse any sort of real injury. Hopefully it's just a kayfabe break. But Owens was kind of one of my initial guys in my head that I thought would just be so awesome to win them Money in the Bank, because I just feel like he's owed one. And again, with the fans coming back and they're going to be so hot, if WWE's too stupid to realize that a Kevin Owens title win wouldn't, just make the fans so goddamn happy, they are out of their minds. And if you were to have him win the Money in the Bank briefcase, I'd be happy. But in terms of your field, Cesaro, Rollins, Zayn, and Nakamura, that would be all right. Like I said, I don't know how you get to it. You'd have to do it real quick, but I'd love to see Edge win it. But that might not work with what he's got apparently planned for Seth Rollins. So if Rollins qualifies, I feel like he won't win. Well, maybe he could. I feel like he won't, though, because they'll go with Rollins and Edge at WrestleMania. I think right now on the SmackDown side of things, my pick out of your field would be Sami Zayn. But I kind of feel like Big E should get in there somehow as well. Let's say you're right. What would that make the field? Cesaro, Rollins, Sami Zayn, Nakamura, Riddle, Morrison, Ricochet, and then one more from WWE. Maybe AJ next week. Maybe not AJ. I don't know which one of those three is going to qualify. I'm not even convinced that's going to be settled next week. So that would round out your 8. Not a bad-looking field. Like I said, either way, I think what the match that WWE's going for this year is to be high-flying. Like every Money in the Bank match is nuts, but I think they want to make sure they have some really, really good athletes that can do some crazy shit in there, because they just want to give the fans a good one, a real good one, and they should give us a good winner as well. Please. We might react to Money in the Bank. We might react to that. I probably will. I think that might be fun to react to Money in the Bank. Some pay-per-views are really fun to react to. That would be one of them. And since I'm going to SummerSlam, I'm not sure how my videos are going to work. I might do a live stream that night from the hotel. after SummerSlam. Maybe I can find a YouTuber in Vegas to join me. We'll see. But maybe for Money in the Bank, we'll react. That might be fun to witness the winners together. I think we did that last year for the matches, for the men's and women's matches at the headquarters, I believe. I think we did. Zane G, thanks for the $5 from you. Rumored Rollins, oh, there it is. Rumored Rollins versus Edge match at SummerSlam. Who would be the heel and who would be the face? I don't know. I think Edge would come back the face. I think he'd have to be, because Seth can give him shit for being pinned and stacked and all that shit and just be a douche. And Edge can be like, and then Edge would have to be, the stand-up respectable, go, yeah, I'll admit it. I lost to Roman, you poser, in his Canadian accent or whatever. So Rollins and Edge, I don't know who would be the heel and face. Really probably wouldn't matter, but I got to go Edge on the face on that one, because the fans, regardless of what Edge did on TV in the build to his WrestleMania match with Roman and Bryan, the fans aren't cheering Rollins over Edge in that situation. There's just no fucking way. So I think it'll be Edge, and that would be fun. I still think it would be awesome if Edge could sneak his way in to the Money in the Bank match. Another big idea we had last night on the podcast, the same thing for Becky Lynch. Just like she got into the Royal Rumble, do the same thing, but do it in the Money in the Bank. Imagine the pop for the women if you get if you get Becky Lynch winning. But if she doesn't make an appearance and they hold her off for SummerSlam or something like that, then I'm all about Mighty Nikki winning the briefcase, because she'd be a hoot. I'm now reading the comments from when my mic was off. Sorry about that. Manu, thank you. Manu is Sika's. Oh, Manu was Roman's brother. Okay, so he's also Rosie's brother, correct? I didn't know that. I had forgotten about Manu. He was just kind of briefly there. God, there's so many of those kids. My God. Well, see, Teddy Hart was actually super talented, and that's what's sucks about him, is because he's so stupidly good, but he's also stupidly mentally. He is such an idiot and a douchebag to the 100th power. I didn't think wrestling could find a bigger douchebag than Teddy Hart. And he's always, problems with drugs and domestic abuse, and he's been in jail, and he is a piece of shit. And it's a shame, because he's unbelievably talented. And if he would have had the attitude, if he would have had the brain of a Mick Foley, this guy would be a 20-time world champion. But instead, he had the brain of a moron, and look what happened to him. Fuck Teddy Hart. Tessa Blanchard showing up. Yeah, but I don't see her winning the briefcase. Greg Gagne was a pretty bad third-generation wrestler. Yeah, he was. Did Vern's dad wrestle? I don't even remember. Was Greg a third or a second? Man, who saw I meant to put that in my notes. I completely forgot. We had yesterday on Peacock, Broken Skull Sessions with Mick Foley as the guest, and I was so entertained by this episode. And I was thinking that I really wasn't. I was even mentioning to Elizabeth before we watched it, I said, the only thing that I'm worried about is that this is right off the heels of the A&E biography, which was just like 2 weeks ago. That was 2 hours long. I personally, you guys have probably too, I think we all have seen close to about 10 different tellings of Mick Foley's career, between the WWE DVDs that have been done and the books he's written and the A&E biography that they already did on him 20 years ago. And now this one, I feel like I'm a scholar with Mick Foley history. I know his career backwards and forwards. You give me a month and a year, I can tell you where he was and what he was doing. Same thing with Bret Hart. There's a lot of guys like that. So, really I was thinking, even though Austin is such a great interviewer and he brings up a lot of good points and these shows are really, really well produced, I was thinking it was just going to be another retelling of Mick Foley's story that I've already heard, nearly a dozen times and just heard as recently as a couple of weeks ago. But it took a different turn. Like, they kept it fresh based on just the banter and the chemistry between the two. They had a lot of fun stories to relive. I love the story of Regal and Austin and Foley being at the gay beach. He wrote about that in Have a Nice Day. And I remember when I read it for the first time, I'm like, that is the funniest fucking story I've ever heard. And to hear them retell it while they're just dying laughing, they can't even get the words out because they're laughing so hard. It was just so fun to kind of, they went through Mick's career, but they touched on some other points and they just didn't rehash everything that we just talked about. And Foley and Austin go so far back, even prior to WCW, when they first met and traveling together and everything. It made for a really fun podcast to where they were really able to share a lot of stories. And when it comes to people like that, a lot of times when you're listening to those stories, you relive your own life in a lot of ways as well, because when I'm reliving all these memories of Foley's career, I think about where I was when that was happening. And it just, it makes you think about all of it. So it was a very just kind of heartwarming episode. I've said it a million times. Mick Foley is too good for the wrestling business. And he's just a class act and just a wonderful man. And he was pretty funny. They just talked about some good stuff on there. So if you haven't seen Foley on Broken Skull Sessions, it's worth a watch. It'll keep your interest and keep your attention the entire time. Never a dull moment when those guys are talking and reminiscing about the past and good stuff. So I wanted to mention that it was a really, really good episode. And I got to check out, I think it was on yesterday, the series finale of the WWE Treasures show. I think this one is with Ric Flair, and apparently they go back. I doubt my buddy who lives there is in the chat right now, Daniel, but he had told me weeks out that this episode winds up in the town I used to live in North Carolina, Greenville. Apparently the guy there that has this robe is there, and apparently, or at least they visit the city, which Greenville is a dump, but they're going there. So I can't wait to see that episode as well. I'm yet to see it, but apparently it's out now. But if you haven't seen the Foley one, check that one out first because it's phenomenal. I got a chat coming in. Where is it? I think it's Zane. There you are. I passed you. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for the $10. What up, Mike Work? Which one of the more rabid capacity crowds would you love to be a part of? Canadian Stampede or One Night Stand 2005? That is a toss-up if I've ever seen one. I'm a Bret Hart fan. I can't not say Canadian Stampede. I have to. I would like to be ringside for that, yes. One Night Stand 2005 would be great. And as much as I liked ECW, I didn't like them as much as I liked some other stuff. I think I put a Bret Hart and a Hart family feud and storyline. I put that ahead of my love for ECW. So I'm probably going to say Canadian Stampede. But for that one, I think I want to be like front row. If anything, if you put actually ECW One Night Stand 2006, that might be a better comparison there because I'd be worried for my life. I might not want to be there during the John Cena and Rob Van Dam match, but to be in there, I mean, Cena just being in the middle of that was crazy enough, and to be in the crowd, that might be an interesting match to watch. Not the whole card. Wasn't a fan of the second time they did it, but the match was pretty crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to say Canadian Stampede, but not by a lot. I would love to be in that One Night Stand crowd in 2005. Jose, is it just your imagination, or do I have a Southern accent? No, I don't have a Southern accent. Where'd you get that from? I sound totally normal. Where the fuck is my biscuit? God damn it. I don't know why people think I have a Southern accent. I don't sound Southern. I don't know where you get this from. I sound pretty damn normal, I think. Don't you? I don't know. I'm from there. I can pick it up and make it come and go whenever I choose, Jose. So what is the plan for McIntyre now? That's what we've been talking about. Like I said, I think the plan and the good story there is for him to feel wronged in some way. Fighting my ass off, getting fucked over in every match. That's what led to Bret Hart snapping. He finally got fucked over one too many times in that cage match with Sid, shoved Vince McMahon down. This is bullshit. Everybody in that goddamn dressing room, do that. That's what I'd do with Drew. I'd make him so angrily mad because unlike Bret, Drew's very menacing and big, and if you piss him off, he can be putting you through brick walls and shit. So if you fuck with him enough and he snaps and he's just out to murder everybody, I'd be into I want to kill you, Drew. Totally. I think that could work a little bit. Yeah, RVD beating Cena, being in that crowd for that would have been quite nice, but also quite scary. No problem. Oh, yeah, I spent many years in the South, but I'm a California man now. Oh, yeah. That's right. Seth and Edge, they could bring him up trying to curb stomp him a few years back. I had forgotten about that. That was when Edge was retired but not cleared, and he was about to do it. I forgot. Was that just a segment? Was it like a rated R? What was his talk show called? Edge when he had one? I think it was that, and he brought out Seth, and they did the deal. That was when Seth, I think, was champion. Edge maybe had the short hair. Am I remembering that right? Yeah, I was a fan of babyface Drew at first. I was happy to see him get that moment at the Royal Rumble. The fans popped their ass off for that right before the shit hit the fan with COVID. But not only did he eliminate Brock, which got a pop, he won, which got a pop. We were all Team Drew. But as it happens with so many others, once you're on top, the fans have got to tear you down. Then all of a sudden, they just critique the shit out of you. All of a sudden, they never complain. They never mention this complaint ever. And all of a sudden, it's a problem the next day. It's what they do. But, a lot of that's not totally on the fans either. WWE has to make these champions interesting. And if you put them over in a big way, great. But you got to keep it going. And a lot of times they kind of screw that up. And Drew had to run that full year of, multiple matches with Orton, multiple matches with Lashley, to where it just kind of disinterested the fans a little bit because it was encompassed by the empty arenas and the Thunderdomes and just the lack of quality content and the overall frustration with WWE and the releases and a lot of the shit that we just dealt with this year. Drew had to have his run through all of that. So he wasn't able to run the natural course with the fans to where you'd come around on the other side and turn heel. He never got to have that, other than the Royal Rumble, that real moment where fans were, really cheering for him hard. And now I think they've missed the bus on that, or missed the boat. And now I think the best thing to do, I think he's very similar to Brett in 97, where he feels like, I'm the best wrestler here, but what the fuck? They keep, and I remember as a Bret Hart fan feeling the same way. I'm like, he's the best one there. How does that belt, how does he seem to repel that belt? How does he never seem to be able to win it when he should have it all the time? And McIntyre could feel that way. I can beat any of these guys. I've proven that, but somehow I'm sitting here not champion just because of one more bullshit thing after another. He could join Sami Zayn and claim there's a conspiracy against him if he wanted. Who knows? The Cutting Edge. Thank you for that, Deshaun. So many talk shows. Yeah, Seth is a better heel than a face as well. We've talked about a potential Kofi or Xavier heel turn. I mentioned before they did the match tonight that I thought maybe, MVP could swerve everyone, act like he's recruiting Kofi, and then have Xavier turn and join the Hurt Business. That doesn't seem exactly likely based on what's happening presently, but would be a fun swerve if they chose to. But like I said earlier, much like the Undertaker streak, if the New Day never breaks up and goes into the Hall of Fame together, never have broken up, I will not feel disappointed. I will not feel cheated. It'll actually be, maybe we'll make up for the fact that they took the streak away from me, because I like that type of stuff, or I like that sort of thing. Yeah, exactly, Mike. I don't think anybody believes Kofi has a chance against Lashley, but it might be fun to have Kofi give Lashley a really good match in front of that audience and come like dangerously crazy one nut hair away from a 3 count of winning the title, to where the crowd even thinks he won and then he doesn't at the last minute. Like, if they can pull off a really good match here and Kofi can prove to MVP that he still has it and he can give Lashley a run for his money, and he can make it a lot tougher for Lashley to beat him than it was for Brock. And, it could be one of those, just great performances by a loser, that the fans appreciate. And I'm telling you, I think that initial crowd is going to be really hot and really amped for everything. And if Kofi can give Lashley a good match and he's able to win in the end, and the fans can show their appreciation for Kofi, that would be a nice moment. Even if you tie a heel turn in there with Xavier or something, you could do that. But like I said earlier, I don't know if I would even do the heel turn there, because I think Lashley needs to remain as strong as possible, and as cool and as good as Kofi is, I don't think Lashley should require help to defeat him. So he should just be able to beat him straight up. So I don't know if I'd tie a heel turn into that unless you did it after the fact, not during the match, after the match, and then do it. And then Xavier goes into the ring to help up his friend Kofi, who just fought his ass off and he's spent, and he lifts him up, and he's the only thing keeping Kofi up from falling down, and then just nails him with a vicious clothesline and turns on Kofi and stares down at him. Like Shawn did. Remember when Shawn super kicked Hogan and then just looked at him? That's a great moment, Just kind of looked down at him, like the same type of look. What did he do? What did he do that for? And then we'll get the explanation on Raw. So if they did that, have done right, and Woods and Kofi have signed off on it, they think it's a good idea and it's a go, then I think it can be a lot of fun. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. I don't know, Jose, with Cesaro winning the Money in the Bank ladder match and then cashing in on Lashley in the same match after he retains against Kofi. I don't see that possibility. Not saying they can't do it, but Cesaro winning and cashing in immediately, fans would pop, but boy, they'd have to change some serious directions, and that would fuck up their plans. All kind of something wrong for SummerSlam. So I don't see that particular scenario playing out, but any scenario involving Cesaro, a briefcase, or a championship, I'm normally not going to reject. I just don't think that fits in to what they're doing. William, I talked about Super Nikki. We talked about her earlier on. I think that if anybody can get anything that ridiculous over, it's her, because she has an amazing amount of enthusiasm, and she seems down to do anything, and she gives it 2,000% in every effort. So if anybody can make this goofy shit work, it's her. As fans, we would sound a little bit hypocritical if we just say, oh, this is the dumbest thing ever, when gimmicks like this have worked before. I used to go to the shows back in the day when the Hurricane was, on TV a lot. I went to a lot of shows from like 97 to 2005. And the crowd would just crack the fuck up at his Titantron. Me and my friend, it was like the funniest thing, because on the Hurricane's Tron, he'd be flying there through space or whatever, and it just looked so ridiculous, and that's what made it so good. It was funny, and we all just got a huge kick out of it. So, if they can do something like that with Nikki, because this is the first week here, she's trying some new moves, and this is going to evolve. Her gear might even evolve. Her look might evolve. She might change her name, get some new music, and this might actually be a thing. As dumb as it sounds, and who knows, maybe her and Alexa remain kind of close. If you start having Alexa's playground segments with SuperHero Nikki on the swing, that's just, like I said, that's too much BSK for me to handle. Batshit crazy. So I'm reluctantly into it. I think only because it's Nikki. If they would have put this shit on Natalya, I would have been like, get the fuck out of here. But the fact that it's Nikki, I'm like, I'll see where it goes. I will give it a chance. I will give this ridiculous shit a chance for her, because that's what she deserves. And I think she deserves that from all of us. Bobby won the match. Did you guys hear? I don't know. Maybe Xavier's done this before. I just haven't noticed it. During the match, he's yelling, Bobby, Bobby. Bobby Lashley, like Whitney Houston would yell to Bobby. Oh, Whitney Houston. I miss her. She was so awesome. That popped me. I'm like, does Xavier always do that to Bobby? Yeah, you're right, Deshaun. A Raw after WrestleMania type of vibe from the fans is what would be ideal for Money in the Bank. I'm curious how SummerSlam is going to be. The show, it looks like the hard cam, everything behind, much of what is behind the hard cam is tarped off. So it's almost like all the fans are on one side of the arena based on the seating chart when I got my tickets and stuff. So I should have a really good view of the ring from where I'm sitting. And I'm hoping that crowd is going to be super hot, even though, it's going to be in a bigger arena. But Money in the Bank, man, there's that. If they can somehow recreate that vibe, that electricity, or maybe what they did in 2011, man, that's a whole exciting night we could have, man. Fingers crossed. Chris, I am not against Jey Uso winning Money in the Bank. That would be very interesting. Think of the dynamic there if you can get an Uso into that match and they win it. And in Roman, all of a sudden Roman is going to, he's going to basically try to convince him just to get rid of the briefcase or go to Raw or something. You're not going to cash in on me. You're not going to cash in on me or whatever. Or maybe Roman will start acting real nice, or maybe kissing his ass. He'll buy him a present. How much you want to bet if Jey Uso wins, Roman will buy him a Rolex or some nice shoes or a gold-plated cock ring? I don't know. He might do something for Jey just to try to butter him up or try to convince him to not take advantage. And it would be fun to see Jey have opportunities. I think Jey would be the right guy, not Jimmy. Jey would be more fun because he's had, the better run this year, and Jimmy just got back. And if he won it, to see Roman Reigns in various situations on TV where he's fighting with somebody and he gets beat down, and Jey Uso has the opening, but he doesn't do it. You kind of see him conflicted. Should I do it? Should I cash in on him right here? I could win the title. Now I'm head of the table, motherfucker. You're sitting over there. You're at the kids' table, Roman. I'm the head now. So if he were to qualify, it would be funny to see him wrestle with that decision. Should I do it? Should I completely uproot my entire life because screwing my cousin over here and taking his title is going to be problematic for my health in my life if I do this, but I'm also going to be champion, and now I'm on top of the mountain. So that would be good. He'd be a great winner just because of the dynamic and what you could do, and it would all be about him and Roman. So I'm into that. He's a great suggestion. Not positive it will happen, but I'd be cool if it did. Totally. Rhea, Ripley, Cars, Fliz, Iron Man submission march would be epic. I don't know what that fucking means. But I saw your other comment about it's difficult to type with your iPhone. That's funny. Whatever Becky does, it needs to be in front of fans, and I think that's what WWE's waiting for. So I think the earliest we will see her is that SmackDown prior to Money in the Bank, but she's not even on SmackDown. She's on Raw. So I think Money in the Bank might need to be where she's gonna be. And whatever they do on the draft, I think Becky and Seth will probably end up on the same show. So they might move Becky to SmackDown or move Seth to Raw. But moving Becky to SmackDown, you don't have to wait for the draft if she wins the Money in the Bank necessarily. She could just cash in over there, I guess. So we'll see. Let's hope that voodoo, superpowers, or hypnosis or mind control does not play into the outcome of the women's Money in the Bank match. I really hope it doesn't. I would hate to see Alexa Bliss. Well, I guess you're not in the Thunderdome, so you can't do anything too spooky. I hope she doesn't send a laser with her eyeballs to the briefcase and then it brings it and pulls it into her hands or something. So she can't do that. She can't do anything too nuts. I don't want to see, as much as I don't hate the direction they went in tonight with Nikki Cross being the superhero and stuff. I don't know if I'm really that interested in seeing her win the Money in the Bank briefcase or Alexa Bliss. I think that might be a little bit too weird. Riddle winning Money in the Bank would be super fun. He could keep all of his pot in the briefcase. That would be great. I'd be totally into him. But for the women, I don't want to see any sort of mind control shit. So you're saying Nikki Cross wins the Money in the Bank briefcase, but then Alexa Bliss mind controls her into giving it to her. Could be, but I'd keep it off Alexa and Nikki. I like the Becky idea. Have her come in, take advantage, enter the match last minute. Fans shit their pants. She wins. My God. But like we talked about last night, you also don't necessarily need to do that with her because she gave up the title. After a year-long run, she shouldn't need a briefcase to get a title shot. She should just be awarded a title shot at SummerSlam. I think Sasha will be back too. I feel like we could get Bianca and Sasha too at SummerSlam unless they bring Becky in to wrestle Bianca or something like that. But Bianca and Sasha too I'd be into. The Fiend is going to be coming back. John Cena's floating around out there. Brock possibly. Becky Lynch. There's a lot of people coming back. Edge, potentially even Daniel Bryan. Rhea and Charlotte in a 60-minute Iron Woman match? I don't think so. Is SummerSlam 2021 going to be bigger than WrestleMania 37? I'm not sure. I'm assuming so. I don't know. I think they are because I think the attendance that I heard was around the 40-ish thousand range. Maybe a little more than 40,000 is what they're expecting for SummerSlam, and they've already sold a majority of those tickets. WrestleMania, I think, was more like 25K, I think, but I don't know the exact numbers. So, yeah, I think it'll be bigger than WrestleMania in terms of size and in terms of audience. Lesnar's going to win the men's briefcase? I don't know. I don't feel that. I don't feel that. They already did that once with him. Again, he's a guy. He's Lesnar. He's going to rely mostly on his name. There's some people that, a briefcase, putting it on them would be a waste because, they don't necessarily need it to get title shots. You know what I mean? But anyway, that is probably going to wrap it up for tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out tonight and discussing Raw. I'm really happy that we did not get a terrible show tonight, and it was one that had a little bit of substance to it, had some good wrestling, some weird moments. some head-scratching parts, but some history. A lot of qualifying matches in one night, and we got our first Hell in a Cell match on Raw since 1998, and we had Bobby Lashley working back-to-back cell matches, which I don't think anybody's done that. So that was pretty awesome. Overall, not a horrible Monday Night Raw, and that is a fucking relief. We might be on the right track, back to some more interesting content, and just now less than a month away of fans returning. And hopefully things getting a lot better. So you guys have a good rest of your night. Don't forget, I'll be back up here on Thursday. We'll do a little news brief stream. We'll talk about any wrestling news. We're going to do a watch-along and review this coming Saturday night of AEW Dynamite. So no daytime podcast that day. We'll be up here that night to discuss the previous night's SmackDown and whatever goes down on Dynamite with the Kenny Omega and Jungle Boy match. And then on Sunday, we'll be up here doing something as well, either a review or a watch-along. Haven't decided yet, but you'll get me a lot this week, so make sure you are subscribed. If you can do me a favor and smash the thumbs up button out the door, I'd appreciate it. Give me some likes to help the channel out. It helps out the channel a lot, and they are needed badly. So hook me up. I'd appreciate it. Enjoy your Monday evening, and we will catch you on Thursday. Y'all be good.